Hey, good morning, good afternoon, folks. Appreciate you guys checking out this video on connecting the sales qualified leads for MSPs. This is chapter 3 of the video audio version of the MSP Lead Generation Guide for 2023. So I'm making this because I know many of you, would prefer to maybe digest this by listening instead of reading a super long e-guide on the website. So I'm assuming that maybe you're not even able to see my screen, that you might be driving, you might be at the gym, you might be walking your dog Nico somewhere. So if I'm going above and beyond, you think, to try to describe what's on my screen, it's because I'm assuming that some of you guys are not able to look at things. So anyway, I'm just going to dive in. I think this is going to take about 40 minutes. I'll try to add chapters into the video after the fact with editing, but yeah, please bear with me as I try to get through the material as efficiently as possible for you guys. So let's dive right in. So first and foremost, if you haven't checked out the previous 2 videos, chapters 1 and chapter 2, I recommend that you do, because these are connected. And just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Derek Marin. I'm the president of a small company that's called Simple Selling, and we're helping MSPs with managing their warm pipeline generation for them. And we're working with primarily small and medium-sized MSPs. And yes, so we build, execute, and manage that entire process that turns colder prospects into warmer, higher converting opportunities for managed and co-managed services agreements for MSPs. When I say we're small, I say we're working with less than 10 managed services providers at this time, but we're hoping to grow in this coming year. And yeah, so what I'm going to share today in this chapter is a little bit about the outbound prospecting side, the side of generating appointments and meetings with opportunities. So what I have pulled up at the beginning of the chapter is a bar chart looking at appointments generated for one of our MSPs over the course of 9 months. When I took a snapshot of the dashboard in HubSpot for them, this is what I was able to pull up. So you can just see month over month, a couple of months there was 3 appointments generated a piece. A few months there was 6 and 8 appointments that were spiked. Then it went back down to 3, 3, 3 for 3 months, 4 and 2. So every month is obviously a little bit different, and there's so many different factors that go into the performance in any given 30-day period. The companies that you happen to be cold calling and working on that particular month, the person doing the job itself, right? But the point is, there is a process that works, and as long as you can control as many of those variables as you can get a predictable outcome. We're getting on average, I would say, around 4 appointments per month on average. There's some months that are certainly better than others. Like right now, I'm recording this in November. We have Thanksgiving coming up, so that clearly has a big impact. In December with Christmas and New Year's, nearly half of the month is taken up. So, things need to be considered like that. But that just is to show that there is a way to get it some consistency, which I think is what many MSPs are looking for. Not necessarily a million appointments a month, but just to say, if I put in X amount of dollars, what am I going to get out in return, so that you can plan accordingly and do the math that you need to do for your business. So this is just one example. I'm just showing another slide now with another MSP that different results, different peaks and valleys. And then another snapshot here of a report that shows the outcomes of the appointments. In other words, what happened in the pipeline. So there's different stages in the pipeline. So I'll just read a few of them. Like we have engaged stage, where there's 5. That's more of a situation where maybe an opportunity, a person who said they were going to attend an appointment, they ended up asking to reschedule it, and so it kind of ends up in limbo a little bit. So it's up to us to try to re-engage them. The other stage is like first appointment is scheduled, so that's actually on the books, on the calendar. Next is first appointment completed. We have a few deals that are in that stage, a few that are in proposal requested, a few that are in proposal presented, or one in proposal presented, another in close one, a couple in close one, which is great, and then a huge amount, well, relatively speaking, for close lost, which is totally normal, right? So this was just a snapshot in a moment in time. Things are moving, but there's always a story behind each of these that's very interesting to get into. But I'm not about to get into individual opportunities here. It's about the process. So taking a quick step back, like what would 4 appointments on average a month do for an MSP? Well, what we've seen over time is that you get customers, you get managed and co-managed services agreements. The close rate varies from MSP to MSP, but typically somewhere between 6 new accounts to as high as 13 we've seen. And what kind of impact does that have? Well, there's a labor shortage, or in other words, it's hard to attract and retain great IT talent. Of course, having more revenue is going to help with that. In addition, there are other goals that you may have to, increase the potential valuation of your MSP as you're looking to exit in the next couple of years, right? Many of those equity investors or M&A players, they're looking for MSPs that have the ability to grow organically through sales and marketing. And so, there is a long-term benefit as well to making this happen. So let's get into what is step one. So step one, when we're onboarding with an MSP, we need to understand first and foremost, who is your ICP? Who is your ideal client profile, ICP? And typically every MSP, or really any services business, really, you have your A clients, the ones that you love, and you have some clients that you kind of feel lukewarm about, and maybe even some C clients, the ones that you probably want to fire, if you're perfectly honest. And so it's important to really think about that, so that when you're talking to a vendor, or you're talking to an internal salesperson or a marketing person, that we're really clear on what exactly you're looking for. Now, for MSPs that we work with, small and medium sized, typically they're based in one location. They have one headquarters. Some of them have a few locations, but typically it's one in our context. And so because of that, and they want to be able to go on site occasionally with new customers, right? Not always, but they want to be able to drive there. And to get there relatively quickly if necessary. And so usually there's a radius, varies on the number of miles, but usually there's some kind of 100-mile to 75-mile radius from HQ. Headcount, I get different answers on that, but you probably want somewhere north of 15 if you're on the smaller end. 15 headcount, but as high as 200, 250 if you're going into co-managed services. So that could be, that's sort of the ranges that we kind of hear. And then we hear often that we want all the verticals. We're vertical agnostic. That's what we often hear from most of the MSPs that we engage with, that you guys can work with any vertical, which is great. But we'll see in a few minutes that when it comes to opening doors with prospects, we need to start thinking a little bit differently. So stick with me here. Stick with me here. Sorry, I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. When it comes to strategy, right? And we talked a little more about differentiation in the previous chapter 2 video, but I'm going to dive into it here as well. So what I have pulled up on my screen, it's got hard to describe if you're not looking at this one, but because I'm just terrible with describing things. But it's got Porter's. Michael Porter, he was a strategist. I think he's like a professor at Harvard Business School for many years. I think he's retired, but he's one of the leading thought leaders on corporate business strategy. A lot of books written. Anyway, I have on my screen Porter's generic business strategies, and there's basically 4 types of strategies. And if I'll describe them very quickly. So there's, if you're going for a strategy that's going to address all verticals, right? Something that's going to appeal to all verticals. You can either go with a cost leadership strategy where you're offering the lowest cost option. Think Walmart or something like that for retail. Or you can do something that's a little bit more in the differentiation side for that addresses needs for the entire market. Something that's really unique about your product or your solution, right? Higher quality in some particular way that it's delivered or et cetera. The other option, so those are two types of differentiation strategies. You also have a cost focused, so for a niche market. So you also could have something that is very much focused on cost for a particular vertical to get in, or you can have a differentiation focus that also is differentiation, but just addressing sort of one type of niche market. So I'm going to give an example here of one player in your industry that has taken one of these 4 strategies and has gone all in and has really started to disrupt the industry a little bit, and that's Electric. So they are based over in actually, I'm not sure where exactly their corporate is, but excuse me, 1 second. I have a baby crying. That's what distracted me. I'm going to pause this and I'll continue recording when that's when this baby has calmed down. All right, I'm back. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Electric and from a press release, because it's going to be easier to explain just by reading this. So Electric, the IT platform for SMBs, raises $90 million in Series D funding. Electric, makers of IT infrastructure software for SMBs, has been on a tear lately. The company announced a close of a $90 million Series D financing round today. Blah, 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 names of other investors. What Electric does for IT infrastructure is similar to what JustWorks does for HR. Instead of an SMB hiring out a person or department to handle the basics of IT, 90% of which is maintenance and compliance, Electric software handles distribution, maintenance, and security for an organization. Before Electric, there were 2 options for SMBs: build out your own IT department or use a local IT provider. Electric came on the scene and allowed an admin within the company to make sure all devices were up to date, et cetera, et cetera. So they are disrupting the industry in their own unique way. And if you go to their website, you can see right on their homepage, all of your IT managed in one place. You can manage your people, devices, blah, 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 in one place. And you go to, when you hover over product, they have on the left, what I've sort of circled is the platform section, where they have a dashboard so an admin can view the organization-wide IT health, track and manage security policies, manage devices. So they'll give, they have a solution, a software that gives that visibility to an admin, but they also have real-time support. And that is where I think they're not just a software solution, but they're actually fulfilling a lot of the basic, the infrastructure and IT support services that an MSP would offer. So they have, and their experience is different. They don't use, they don't have like the traditional tickets. Where they have is real-time support that integrates to a company's Slack. For example, if that company's end users whole team is on Slack, if you have an issue, you can connect with an engineer or IT support directly there. Or if you use Microsoft Teams as well. And they have additional projects that they can provide to a company. So this is not meant to be a huge commercial for Electric, but the point is that they have chosen the strategy, which is to really offer a lower cost option to companies that don't have internal IT, and that is mainly their value proposition, and it's working. They've been growing, and they're partnering even with some MSPs as well to deliver on-site stuff. So back to the point around differentiation, what does that leave most MSPs that are listening to this? Like what could we do potentially differently, right? To break out of the commodity trap. And so what I've pulled up now is the 6 reasons that companies leave an MSP or they leave their IT provider. These are 6 reasons that are not coming from me. They're coming from Logically, which is a larger, medium-sized MSP. They have a great white paper on things that reasons that people would switch, and they have the 6 reasons are, and I think this is important, right? We need to know why people switch, right, in order to come up with a differentiation strategy. So let's take a look at it. So it's poor responsiveness and execution is one reason. Number 2, service offerings aren't tailored to your needs. 3, they lack the required depth and breadth of skills. 4, you don't trust your MSP to deliver and always do the right thing. 5, there's a lack of vision and strategy. And 6, you're not getting enough value from your investment. So if we think about these reasons, an electric.ai is not going to be able to necessarily provide the vision and strategy to an end customer, right? Because Electric's goal is to be the low cost solution, right? They're going to be great at regular IT support real time, but they're not going to bring that, that vision and strategy so much because that's not their value prop. And, the service offerings aren't tailored to your needs or require depth and breadth of skills. That too is going to be very difficult for a mega organization like Electric that's trying to go nationwide and just be the low cost option. They're not going to be able to fill that. So that leaves for the rest of us a different type of differentiation, which is one that is more focused on that box reporters strategy around differentiation focus. So what I mean by that is, well, let's look at the other two that are also on there that I'm saying is probably not the best idea. So there was differentiation for the total market. I think that's very difficult for most of us to consider because, well, let's look at the idea that IT services, they are almost pretty much the same for most MSPs, right? You're all offering, managed IT. You're offering help with cybersecurity services. You're offering backup and disaster recovery solutions, et cetera. And so it's hard to come up with a differentiation factor that is totally different for every single vertical out there. Not saying that it's impossible, but I've seen that it's more rare. From the MSPs, at least that I've spoken with, who are coming from, mainly from a referral growth context to wanting to get into to sales and marketing. It's just not typically a huge amount of differentiation there for that applies to everyone. The cost focus. I don't think we want to get into cost. I don't think we want to be a low cost solution. It's running an MSP is expensive. Your customers are demanding more from you and expecting more from MSPs every day. They want that expertise. So the idea of going into a cost battle or reducing costs, and especially with inflation nowadays, it seems like totally backwards type of approach, I would say. So that basically just leaves differentiation focus. So what would that look like? So what I have pulled up on my screen now is basically an example. So here is an MSP that it has a description. They have a case study up on their website, and case study is not necessarily all that unique. Like many MSPs have. Not all, but many MSPs have an industry section on their website. So you clearly identify the different industries that you like to work with. You talk about some of the problems that are unique to those industries, which is good. But here, where I think this MSP starts to really get into a good a higher level, I'd say, of differentiation is by adding a case study and getting into the details around the challenge or the problem. So I'm just going to read some of what it says. So it says the challenge for this customer. Prior to working with this MSP, this customer, this medical diagnostic lab, experienced several technical roadblocks and inefficiencies that prevented them from performing at optimal levels. And then it has a couple of bullet points. Reporting of stat orders was inconsistent and often late. Before the MSP, this customer had to manually check for pending results or use the outdated and inefficient reporting module that their LIS offered. Another bullet point, the MDL, which is the customer, did not have any EMR interfaces in place with any of their clients. The previous IT personnel did not have the knowledge or skill set to facilitate these integrations. Another point, MDL acquired a new molecular UTI instrument that gives patients results in 24 hours. The machine detects all specific organisms in the sample and gives suggestions on which antibiotics to use to treat the infection. However, to get the results report in the PDF format that doctors expect, a connection to a third-party API needed to be established. MDL needed an efficient, streamlined method of tracking daily accessions and requisitions. So this is clearly a very specific challenge for a medical organization like MDL, right? And this is not talking about your standard IT, cloud migration situation. It's very unique, right? And this is the level that an electric.ai is not going to get into. And this is the level that most of your other, competitors in your area will not necessarily get into as much with projects. Not all MSPs are going to, but that is where we need to go when it comes to a differentiation focus. And it's not just about doing that, finding those gaps and doing that work, but it's about also, when it comes to sales and marketing, putting it on your website. And then a step further is actually taking it and turning those case studies and potentially turning it into a project that can be sold to other similar companies within that vertical. So what this MSP has done is they had the case study, and what I have on my screen now is another page on their website, not the case study page, but another page on their website, and it says automated daily accession counts. Does your medical lab need an easier way to manage and analyze your day-to-day data? We provide automated daily accession counts that give medical institutions access to invaluable comprehensive reports for daily high-level overviews of operations. So they are offering a product, basically, that is very, very unique. And if there are enough prospects that fit that that have that particular need, that is going to be a differentiation focus that is going to give that MSP an edge, right, in getting their foot in the door, which is what all this appointments and all of this stuff is all about. It's about getting someone, getting a customer who may already have another MSP, but solving a problem for them that maybe their existing IT provider MSP is not getting around to, so that you can form that relationship, maybe even get some revenue in the door quicker, right? And then down the line, as you guys form that relationship and they get to know what your company and they find out, oh, you guys also do IT? Oh, you guys also help with cybersecurity? Oh, well, you know what? It's better off if we just give you our whole business. Why are we going to work with two providers? Let's just give you everything. So that is sort of the journey that I think an MSP today that really wants to be successful with sales and marketing needs to be thinking about, is the differentiation focus. And that doesn't mean that you're necessarily having to ignore all of the other verticals. You can still be vertical agnostic. All this means is that for a certain period of time, your strategy is to kind of go vertical by vertical, right? Start with one vertical, building the sales and marketing playbooks around that vertical, go all in, and then kind of get some traction, momentum, and then move on to the next one. And you build your website, build your differentiation focus on your website, one vertical or two at a time. Go kind of sort of sequentially like that. So you can still be a vertically agnostic MSP, but behind the scenes, you're going at it in this way. So coming back to the outbound process here. So identify the ICP, pick a differentiation model that works for your MSP. And the next step is, you need to have a good outbound sales platform system. we happen to be biased towards HubSpot. I used to work at HubSpot, and so I already was familiar with their software before I started Simple Selling. They've continued to invest in their solution and improve it. They have a lot of special things for sales and outbound sales specifically that we love. But I know that there's other solutions out there. There's many. Where I see many MSPs who are new to appointment setting, where they kind of, they don't know what they don't know about CRMs, about sales CRMs specifically, about outbound solutions specifically. I think that one of the most important reasons that we love HubSpot and what needs to come through in whatever system you go with is that it has some baked in sales automation tools. So, we can't, we as an SDR, as a sales development rep doing the cold calling, here's the thing, like there are so many different types of activities that a sales rep needs to do, right? It's not only the phone. The phone is absolutely important. Maybe the most important. I would say it absolutely is. We get more appointments through the phone channel than any other. But there's a lot that goes into getting someone to pick up the phone, getting someone to understand your value. And that means you also have to be emailing. You have to be emailing sometimes multiple people within the same organization, not just one. You have to also be adding some LinkedIn touch points for a social. That's a great network for salespeople to be connecting with decision makers. So very quickly, as an SDR, your life gets very complicated, and you have to work, over a period of a month, a couple hundred companies. So just do the math on that. It's very quickly your day becomes, very, very difficult to keep up with the level of activity that you need. And so you need some of that to be automated, some portion of that, especially the emailing part. And also just, in HubSpot, when you get their sales professional version, they have something called sequences, which is how you enroll prospects into some automated emails. But it's not just the emails. It also allows you to create call tasks. Tasks are just like little reminders that you can put as a salesperson. You can put you can line up a bunch of call tasks and bundle them together and do a power hour of cold calling. So the sequences, that sales automation piece of HubSpot is super important for us. You also want to be able to have call recording embedded, right? Because as a sales manager, as a coach, you want to be able to go in and find all of the calls that were dialed, and you want to be able to analyze and listen and find areas to improve for the SDR, right? So you need to have calling enabled. And there's more, but that's primary. Those are a couple of the things that we really like about HubSpot, specifically for the outbound system. So the next part here, so that was step 2, is getting the right system. And then step 3 is actually preparing how you're going to manage this. So, and this is not in the software. It's just like, what are the guidelines? For example, like, how will you evaluate your SDR's performance? Like, what will you expect from them in first month, month 2, month 3, specifically what KPIs? Not only that, but like, who on your team is going to do the one-on-one coaching? How often? What will be how will you organize that? Those coaching sessions, that type of thing. So, you have to anticipate that you're going to need to provide your SDR, your salesperson, with supports, with a means of accountability, with the means, with the motivation as well, because it's a hard job to cold call and to try to generate appointments. It's really not easy. It's harder and harder. It's harder now than it was last year. It's harder today than it was yesterday, because it's just there's more competition. It's harder to get people's attention. And so you're constantly being rejected. And for a salesperson coming into work for an MSP, the majority of them are, at least in my experience, or the people that we recruit, they tend to be younger. So it's many times it's one of their first outbound sales jobs, and so they're learning outbound sales. They may have had some outbound sales experience, but maybe not a ton. So they need to unlearn some things and learn some new things. They need to learn the tool. In our case, HubSpot, but in your case, it could be a different system. They need to learn, and it's not just the tool, right? The tool needs to be configured a certain way that works for your process. So they need to learn the tool. They need to learn, and they just need to understand that it's a process, right? It's going to take them a couple of months to get those results. And so, but they don't know what to look for. They don't necessarily know how to self-diagnose, right? So you as a manager need to anticipate what some of those challenges will be for them and what you'll accept and what you won't accept, and you kind of share that upfront during onboarding, and then hold them accountable on a regular basis, and always bringing value to your coaching sessions, not just showing up as a coach and being unprepared to identify what the problems may be. Because if you do that, all you're doing is you're not really helping. You're just coming in and you're just, kind of, you're gonna lose the ability to actually find the actual issues, because you're not really gonna know what they are, and you're gonna rely on the SDR to self-diagnose, and that is rarely going to be gonna lead to the right types of results. So don't, got to spend some time thinking about how you're going to manage the person. Think about the time it will take for you. Well, the other step here is onboarding an SDR. This has taken us quite a while. We're constantly refining our own onboarding process. I think I mentioned it a little bit before. They're typically on the newer side of the spectrum to outbound sales. And they're also usually not coming in with MSP or IT experience per se, at least in our case. If you hire someone who has some MSP experience, that's going to be better. They'll be more expensive for sure, but that could potentially drive some better results. I would say, when it comes to onboarding, you got to think about how long it's going to take. So, there's some studies that have been done. This is one that was a survey done of a couple of hundred B2B and B2C sales departments across the United States and different organizations, and they have their ramp time averaging out to says ramping USDRs to full productivity takes about 3 months. And this is, what's interesting is this is for organizations that have a fully baked sales process and sales department and system in place already, right? They've had the opportunity to make mistakes, to iterate, to improve. And so if you're an MSP that's hiring a salesperson for the first time, building your own management system and your own CRM for the first time, then you got to anticipate that you're not going to be so good at it, at ramping up someone and onboarding. So if it takes a good organization 3 months, like for us, it takes about 3 months to ramp someone up. For you, it may take twice as long. So you may have to be a little bit more patient to figuring out just how to set everything up and how to train this person to fully ramp. We're at 35 minutes. Wow. Yeah, it's taking a while. So step 5 here is getting to tracking outbound results. Of course, you need to have the right reporting. You need to have some KPIs. So I'll give you some examples of things that we look for. So right here, I have a snapshot of a report that shows enrolled for this month's pipeline month to date. And it shows the names of a couple of SDRs and how many companies they've enrolled. So when I say enrolled, what we mean is like, put into a sequence, which is what I was talking about earlier. So, this is super important for a coach or manager to keep their eye on, for the SDR to keep an eye on, because, and it depends when you look at it, because here's the way we work. So at the beginning of the month, the SDR is enrolling a lot of companies, net new companies, into sequences, right? To get that ball rolling. And over the course of the month, they're calling these companies. These contacts are receiving emails through the sequence, right? There's some LinkedIn touches throughout, right? But you get to a certain point where you get to the end of the sequence, and some companies need to be kind of put into like recycling back into the CRM to kind of touch base with them in the future. Some you connect with and you get the appointment. Some you connect with and they say no thanks, right? There's different outcomes, but you always want to have sort of a high volume of companies that are enrolled, because if you see an SDR is not enrolling enough, then what that means is they're going to run out of call tasks, for one thing. Or what's going to happen is they are going to run out of call tasks, but then they're going to go off and follow their own process. They're going to call one company beyond the number of call tasks that we believe makes sense for us, for them to stay on pursuing a company with. So they might over call, right, and annoy a prospect and potentially burn a bridge. On the flip side, so that's basically why, keeping a good eye on the number of companies and the amount that their SDRs is working or pursuing is really important for any coach to be keeping an eye out. Another report here that we have is call outcomes. So, whenever an SDR calls and hangs up, they always have to label what was the outcome of that dial. And sometimes they get sent to a machine, and they can where they can leave a voicemail for the intended decision maker. Sometimes they connect. Sometimes, in other words, they get to the decision maker and they actually have a conversation. Other times the phone is just no answer. A lot of different outcomes, right? So we track that. I believe the industry average, I'll hold me to it. I'll add it in the comments. I'll show you a snapshot from industry average for connects, but we're experiencing anywhere between, on a good month, as high as 10% connect, on a bad month, as low as like 5%. So the average is probably somewhere in between for the dials. So this is really important too, right? Because if you're going to get appointments, you need to be able to actually have a conversation with the right people, right? It's not enough just to be dialing 100 times a day or 50 times a day or whatever it is that you're doing. You need to be talking to the right people. So this report is huge, really important. We find that people who have experience with outbound tend to get to the the average of connect more quickly, because they know how to deal with the gatekeeper, if you want to call them that, the receptionist who pick up the phone. They know how to handle that a little bit better from experience. Whereas, in other situations, in some areas, you have more IVR, more of the phone systems. And so there's a slightly different strategy there in place with voicemails and what have you. So you expect sort of it to be a little different with the connects. It also depends where you're getting your phone numbers from and your primary source of your database and what other service you're using, because that's something that's missing on here. Is like, you don't just need the CRM, right? You also need to be able to get leads, and that means email addresses and phone numbers from a third party subscription service. There's many of them out there, so you need to have you need to make sure that service, that you have that service, and that information is getting pumped into your CRM for your SDRs as well, so that they're not spending a huge amount of time doing admin and doing that type of research. That they're primarily focused on doing sales. So I kind of went off on a side tangent there. I think this part is actually not mentioned. in one of the bullet points. So if I could add another section to this chapter, would be that you need to have a subscription to some other third-party service to get prospects and leads into your CRM. So anyway, I hope that so to wrap this up, this is kind of what it takes to have that output of predictability in an average of say 4 appointments a month. It's a process. It's not magic. It just takes a lot of hard work. You have to know who you're going after, what makes your MSP different, and you have to have a good system, a good CRM in place that gives your salespeople an edge, and that accommodates, that decreases the friction for them with the volume of activity that they need to do. So some automation built into the system makes a very big difference. You need to have management processes and thoughts and plans in place so that you can hold people accountable and help them out when they need help, because they will need help. And you need to have the good reports and dashboards to give you the data that you need to coach them accordingly. It's not enough to just show up and say, hey, why do you think you only had 3 appointments this month? Right? It's fair to ask that question, but you need to actually have the data behind it to really figure out what could actually be going on. Don't expect the SDR to know the answer. It's your job to know the answer on that. So last thing is just a little commercial. If you are looking for help with this, definitely reach out to me. What makes Simple Selling, unique, aside from the fact that we just work with MSPs, is that we are helping both with the outbound prospecting, appointment setting side of things, and we're helping with the long-term marketing that needs to take place. Because here's the facts. The majority of prospects that you reach out to are not ready to take an appointment. They're not in the buying cycle. And even if you have something that is pretty unique or different, they're not always ready to hear about it at that point of time when you interrupted them. And so over time, your database, your CRM accumulates a large number, way more of qualified leads that you want to stay in touch with, that you want to nurture. And that's something that Simple Selling helps out with. We do both. We're helping MSPs on both sides of the equation. And so if you want to hear more about that and what kind of results you can get by doing both sides, the sales, the outbound sales and the marketing continuously together, then definitely reach out and be happy to talk to you about that. Anyway, I hope you got some good ideas from this. Take care. There'll be one more chapter on this for this MSP Lead Generation guide coming up pretty soon. All right. Take care. Bye.